question. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks very much for your talk. It's very, very fascinating.
Sure.
I guess one thing that I wonder about is maybe relates back to some of the earlier comments about continuous progress, because it seems to suggest that we will always continuously progress.
Right.
And I think the clutch of that is what we define as progress, because under certain definitions, I don't think we can progress indefinitely and sustainably.
Right.
But my question actually relates to the S-curve. I think at first glance, it looks very deterministic. Well, I don't need to do anything because eventually I'll just go back to that progression point. I mean, to what extent does it assume that there are agents there that will bring us to that point? And I guess another variable there is also to what extent will we be able to reach a better point? So like the absolute value may change. Could you comment on that?
Well, let me you're pointing out one of the biases in the charts that I use, and I appreciate that. I should have, there are just a number of S-curves as go down as go up. In other words, you could go from something that was good to something that was down. But let me point out, a lot of research recently is how people respond to change. And one of the things we found is that even though on the front end the change looks bad, after a while, it's okay, and they even rationalize it as better. I mean, even tragedies, you know, losing a loved one or something like that. You talk to people, you say, it was awful, oh, I wish, you know, I miss them so much, but I'm a better person, and or I've learned this, or I've grown, or whatever. And so, psychologically, I don't know whether it's necessary or not, but we tend to think of ourselves, particularly in Western cultures, moving on to something better from something not. So whether it's true in fact, I mean, the people talk about sustainability. Are we ruining the earth? Yes. And will there be a new era as a result? Yes. Will those people walk around with long faces and, oh, they ruined the earth and my grandparents and they did all this oil and stuff like that? After the transition, and the transition is awful. I mean, the people in transition don't have any hope at all. But after the transition, they're going to go, whew, am I glad we're done with that? You know, the age of exaggeration, the age of affluence, the age of exuberance, you know, now we have something, whatever that is, we have something that we are, not what they are. So I even think, even after this transition of global warming and sustainability and resources, those generations are not going to want to come back. I have a little exercise I do in social change. I ask anybody, would you change places permanently with a person of equal social status in any other historical period? How many people say yes? None. None want to go back to any other period. I mean, sure, my father wished he could have gone back to the 1950s, but I'm talking about, you know, that was his own life. And then I ask people, would anybody permanently change places with anybody in a future era? And no. They still wouldn't. One or two adventures like you would like to, oh yeah, this is, you know, permanent, jumping ahead and whatever. But no, they wouldn't want, because we know our own era and we're comfortable with it. We know how to be in it. And we really don't, it's very much like traveling. How many people really want to be an expat? A few. But very few of us actually do, to actually live permanently and take on another culture. Many people do, but most people don't. And traveling in time is the analogy. And most folks, even after the S-curve has its, basically say, this is the world that I know, this is the world that I'm comfortable with and that I would like to stay with.
My question was about, one thing I'm getting from your presentation is that eras can begin and end all the time or at any time because of the potential for disruption. And unfortunately, we're not stuck with the luxury of being able to pick our endpoint for our simulation. It's Canada at 150 in 2017. That's our time that we've been given. So in terms of thinking about the future, is thinking about the future for you different in the medium term than the long term? And does your techniques change or scale differently depending on the time horizon that you're looking at?
Okay. We'll keep... I have a one-sentence response. More trends in the short run, more disruptions in the long run.
First, I wanted to start by saying thanks for your excellent presentation. I have to ask this because I'm curious and because the curves that you've put up on your slides reminded me of something else I've been seeing in the papers these days. So here's my question. Based on how you conceive of the future, how do you invest your money personally in the stock market or elsewhere? And have you been successful?
That's putting your money where...
No, I'm going to tell you, I give my money to a financial advisor and he does it. I will give, but I have a graduate of the program who is an investment counselor and I will refer you to him. Learning is one of the most exciting things that we can engage in, and that's what you're really signed up for. That's what you were selected for, to be powerful learners in this environment so that when you come back to this group and then come back to the government as a whole, you will bring back insights and information and the signals of change so that perhaps, and you won't get credit for it, but perhaps this government can start dealing with emerging issues before they become a crisis rather than waiting until the crisis occurs and then, of course, it may be too late. As I said, I'm really privileged. This is so cool, and you're the exact right group for this. And I've already taken much more longer time than I should have. Dan, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.